Hey there, and welcome to the Rover Podcast, the podcast where we talk about nothing important at all. We are completely fan-funded, and we are here asking you if you want to go sign up for our newsletter. Go do that at therover.ca/support-us. That's SUPPORT-us. We really live entirely based on reader funding, but also if you don't have the funding, we would really appreciate it if you sign up for the free newsletter, or if you share this with anyone else in your life. Go give the podcast 5 likes. Go check out our YouTube channel. This is all on video as well. And we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. And with that, we will begin. How are you doing, Chris?
Neutral.
Very good. How are you doing, Rachel?
Apathetic.
Yeah, me too. Today, we're going to talk about many more of the things that we were talking about last week, but we're going to start today off. We have a bunch of questions for Rachel. We want to talk about what she's been doing, what she's been up to. Chris, take it away, man.
Yeah. So Rachel, one of my understanding is you are monitoring how right-wing extremism gets funded on the internet. And I don't think many people are familiar with how that works. Could you sort of explain it a bit?
Yeah, it's actually one of the things I'm most excited about. And it literally explains everything that's wrong with the world right now. Like, I know it's a big statement, but when I describe to you what the issue is, you'll understand what I mean. Because anyone who's been annoyed with disinformation, with extremism, even organized crime and foreign interference stuff, this ties into all of it, because there are billions and billions and billions of dollars out there. Like the ad tech industry, which is the industry that encompasses the entire buying and selling of ads, is set to become $1 trillion business in the next 2 years. So there's a ton of money here. And what's insane is there's zero regulation at all or oversight. And so what ends up happening is Google, especially, because Google's the king shit when it comes to ad tech. They rule everything. That's why there's a DOJ case going on right now.
So wait, they generate the ads that automatically pop up on... I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We're going to get...
Yeah. Can you get as detailed as possible for the people like us?
So I'll give you guys your vegetables as quickly and painlessly as possible. Basically, think about it as an auction. That's basically the way that buying and selling ads works now. It used to be that a brand would call the New York Times or whatever and buy a slot on a page. That's called a direct ad. And that barely, it still happens, but something 87%, I think, of all ad buys, digital ad buys nowadays, are programmatically placed. And programmatic is a fancy way of saying it's automated. And the way that happens is, how there was all this stuff about companies taking all your data, tracking you when you're on the web. That is valuable because it can be packaged and sold to advertisers. So basically, what these advertisers believe they can do is they can say, hey, I want to reach a woman aged 25 to 35 who wants to buy a car. And they give their money to Google, give them their ad campaign, and say, hey, can you make sure I reach those eyeballs? And Google says, hell yeah, brother. And then it goes down
Google
the pipe.
Is Hulk Hogan in this scenario?
Yeah, it is. Literally.
Google's got the big handlebar mustache and a sex tape.
Yeah.
By the way, don't ever watch the Hulk Hogan sex tape. Oh. It will ruin all of your childhood
Why have
dreams.
You watched the Hulk Hogan?
Because you're not going to not watch the
Hulk
Hogan sex tape.
We're moving on. Keep going,
either.
please.
All right, it's not cool.
I did not look at Drake naked.
It's probably helpful to interject with Hulk Hogan sex tape, because this is the vegetables of the disinformation world. No, it's fine.
That was me dropping the vegetable on the floor and rubbing it on some meth.
Yeah. Perfect. So now that we're done with our meth break, what happens next is when an advertiser hands that money off to Google, it goes down this pipeline. And to then I'm going to switch gears now and say you're a person on the internet, right? You open a website, and in the time it takes that website to load, they check your cookies, and an auction happens in the blink of an eye to decide which ad to serve up on that website based on everything they know about you. And then you end up with, the digital ad showing up. And what's really crazy, though, is that these, there's no oversight for how these ads get placed, for them actually ending up in the right place. And a lot of bad actors know how to game the system so that they can take ad revenue by pretending that it's going to one place, but it's actually going to another. And because there's no oversight or regulation, it ends up like funneling money into the pockets of these bad actors who know how to use the system. And then the most fucked up part, well, I guess maybe that's also a huge fucked up part, but an additionally fucked up part is that to try to combat the fact that people with the know-how can disrupt this process and like take the money, they basically have developed this whole industry called brand safety. It's the whole thing that Elon Musk is talking about on Twitter right now, double verify. That's a brand safety thing. And it's this idea that you can kind of take steps to protect your brand by ensuring that it's not showing up on certain websites. But the way that they do that is through things like keyword block lists. So they'll say like, hey, make sure that my ad isn't served on a page that has the word racism on it, which is genuinely a word that gets blocked all the time. And then the publisher that's publishing, say, an article about racism doesn't get the money for the ad. So these brand safety things punish the people who are doing legit journalism and don't actually deal with the problem, which is these bad actors knowing how to take advantage of a system that's opaque and has no regulation. So yeah, it's a big problem. And what my work does is we catch them and we call it out and point out when, you know, people will literally use a front website to pretend that they're brand safe. And then like there's like a weather website associated with Breitbart or something like that. I'm probably screwing this up, but dude, there's some website that I saw that's kind of affiliated with Post Millennial. Like all their authors also write for this random like semi-defunct website that's like a tourist website. It's actually
is it like when you see those you'll never believe what happens next, or like none of so-and-so's colleagues are talking to him anymore because he did, like, you know, like with Mary Berg and like, is that a part of it, or is that another thing?
That's that's another thing, because basically what I'm talking about are like full-blown websites that literally just exist to be like, this is a harmless website.
To launder the ad.
Yeah, because they can share the back-end information with these like bad actor websites, and they like hand off the money to those websites. Yeah.
So Breitbart has a weather like what are some examples, or are there any Canadian examples that come to mind right away, or you're focusing more in the States?
So we're doing a bit of both, and like some of this I have to kind of tread lightly because there's some stuff that we're kind of like lightly digging into, and like I don't want to scoop us. So I don't know. I mean, we've published some. I'm pretty sure the weather one was published on our website, but it was like before I started with Check My Ads. So yeah, but it's like I think I'm pretty sure it's a weather website, like Weather Nation or something, and it's just like the most boring weather channel. And
what kind of money are we talking about though? Like how much? Because like I worked at the Gazette. We had these ads on our we didn't make that much. It wasn't enough. Well, the ad revenue when I was there that we made and I don't think it's changed, but the ad revenue when I was there was not online anyways, was not close to enough to sustain the online operation. Like what it cost us to run the website and to put people working on the website, we didn't even make close to that in ad revenue. I would imagine it's different at these kind of clickbaity things, or what for a bigger scam. What kind of money we're talking about here?
Well, let me give you an example. When Sleeping Giants went after Breitbart's advertisers, Breitbart lost 80% or 90% of its overall revenue. So just to give you a sense, like I don't know
is
what
that's still happening right now.
That they're still fucked.
Yeah.
Mostly, but like we just published a little while ago that Google is helping Breitbart fund itself through ads again, because Google has this program where it allows any publisher to embed its search function on their website. And if you go to Breitbart now and you like try to search something, it should still say, because last I checked, it was still powered by Google, that the search results are powered by Google, and ads will appear under that. And like we've seen ads for all kinds of brands served on this website, including say BMW. Like BMW served ads on Breitbart, and they have explicitly spoken out in the press saying they don't want to fund Breitbart. So it's like, Yeah, it's like BMW like affiliates. So it's
White
really hard.
supremacists buy cars too, Rachel. They need to find them.
Yeah, but BMW doesn't want their business, you know? So it's just yeah.
I just accepted cookies from Breitbart.
I'm appalled.
You know
I'm
it's
so
going to go
sorry.
badly.
You should see,
I'm
like,
appalled that anybody would associate Germany with racism. Kidding, guys.
I don't see Powered by Google, but I'm sure you're right.
Hang on, let me.
But I have a hardcore ad blocker on. That's why.
Yeah.
That's probably. I have to turn off my ad blocker, but.
Gotcha. I can't even see the ads because I have it on.
Did
Wait,
you go to
turn them off.
search?
Okay, I'm doing it.
Oh, I'm literally
Search.
getting served a Google ad at the top of Breitbart.
Oh,
right
really?
now. Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell because it's got that little blue arrow.
Okay. I don't.
I'm gonna search.
Thing.
Oh yeah, see the blue arrow?
Yeah, I see the blue arrow.
Touch the blue arrow. Oh no, I don't know. Fuck.
No.
If you exit, yeah, and it's a Google search. So search anything in their little search bar, and you'll see what comes up is a Google search.
I'm searching poop.
Perfect.
Search Breitbart. Whoa, this is straight up just Google.
It's Google, right?
Yeah, it's
because
Google.
Missouri
Google
poop
has.
swastika is when social justice jumped shark.
And do you see sponsored posts at the top of that?
Wait, I want to read this. What is going on? I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna put this in the notes. Okay. All right. So Breitbart is funded by Google. Can I say that, or is that misinformation?
In part, they get money
nuanced.
from the ads that run on Google search partners.
Okay.
And Google search partners is something that, like, most brands, I believe that they are automatically opted into when they use Performance Max, which is like Google's big product. And they only recently gave an opt-out option. We were covering it. You'll have to fact check me on that because I don't remember all the details. But basically, brands had a really hard time opting out of using Google search partners.
Okay, so what am I fact checking?
Sorry, whether you can opt out of Google search partners if you're like a brand. It would be on Adweek or Digiday. Because basically, if you can't...
I'll fact check you on that one.
Yeah, because if you can't opt out of this program, it means that you can't opt out of having your ads served on Breitbart.
Holy shit.
Exactly, right? So it's how do you protect your brand? You can't.
But wait, aren't millions of advertisers pulling back from things like X because of the amount of Nazis that are on there?
Yes.
Yeah, because you don't want
advertisers
your tweet
don't want
ad...
to fund hate.
And they don't want
to fund justice, though.
A Coca-Cola ad right above a guy who's denying the Holocaust.
But they don't want to fund justice
happens.
either, though, right? Because they won't be on the same page as racism.
They want to make money. They ultimately want to make money. That's it. They just want to make money. They don't care how. If racism makes them less money, they're not going to do it.
Okay.
If it makes them more money,
a lot of that
they
is
will
also
tacitly
based
accept
on,
that it's happening.
A lot of that is based on misconceptions that these brand safety companies try to sell brands on. They'll tell them, you don't want your ad showing up somewhere that makes people feel bad. You only want them showing up places that make people feel happy. And then they end up blocking all kinds of words.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me the way to make money is to be a centrist, both sides news organization.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that only covers maybe
the
royal family, you know?
Yeah.
I
none
have
of the
a plan
racist
for the
stuff.
Rover.
The Rover becomes the most boring. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. My life is too exciting as it is.
The Montreal Gazette literally posts about the weather.
I mean, it's important.
They're like, it seems pretty nice these days. Is spring upon us? It's like,
when I was at the Montreal Gazette and I was on the night desk every week as the weekend neared, so probably on Wednesday, we would get a press release from the Minister of Transportation, and they would detail all of the construction sites that were going to disrupt traffic that weekend. In the winter, not a big deal. You're talking maybe one or two major spans in the city, maybe even nothing. In the summer, this was like a punishment from God. You might have, worked on an award-winning piece the day before, but if you're on the night shift, you're getting punished by God because you have to explain in words how an intersection between 5 different highways going in different directions, which lanes open, which one's closed, when it closes, when it opens. that was a big function of like being a night reporter at the Gazette. That's a shitty function of being a cop beat or night beat reporter at any publication, as far as I know, unless there's tons of crime to eat up all your time. And believe me, the boredom of the night shift is so bad that sometimes you would find yourself saying like, God, I wish someone shot someone. It's real bad. Man. It's real rough. Yeah.
Wow.
I never said that out loud. I thought it. But I wanted to ask, and I'm sorry, I'll shut up after this. But I wanted to ask you, Rachel, like, this is probably something you had to answer a bunch, but like, you worked for Bell Media, you worked for Global. You're an excellent journalist, and
thanks.
now what you're doing is not exactly journalism. You're using a lot of the skills that you had, but you're doing a lot of media commentary. You're doing a lot of media criticism. How would you like? People call me like an activist all the time, or like, you're not a journalist. You take your and I have a complicated relationship with whatever the fuck it is that I am. How do you describe yourself in this big world of journalism?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've interrogated a lot, but I do feel like if like these journalists who write analysis pieces can call themselves journalists, like Aaron Worry publishes all kinds of analysis. I can call myself a journalist, you know, like I say shit with like a little extra riz sometimes, you know, like I'll sprinkle a little more attitude in the way that I'm characterizing something, but I'm just kind of packaging my news for an audience, you know? And at the end of the day, like I would report the story the same way, no matter which politician it was, no matter who was behind it, if the facts of the story were the same. Do you know what I mean? Like if Trudeau comes out,
you're not objective, you're fair, right?
Exactly, because I don't think there's such thing as objectivity, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Also, the objective journalist, like I also find that objectivity is like you're just siding with the status quo. Like
I also find like some objectivity is like they just like will post a quote and that's the whole article. You're like,
yeah,
this is what this person said, and you're like, that is objectively what that person said.
Let's not put it in context.
And it's really problematic when what that person said wasn't something they have any expertise about, and you don't bring in anyone with actual expertise. You know what I mean?
So
see that
that's
a lot
not objective.
days, so.
No, it's a tough. It's pretty easy to pick up on. Like you can read any neutral article and have a pretty reasonable opinion about how the person who wrote it votes or how they feel about the subject. You make decisions about what quotes to include up front, you know, who to finish the article with, how it's structured, how the story's told, you know, even just like your word choices. Like in Quebec, if you refer to someone as a separatist, you're probably a federalist. Like that's not a nice word. Like I would say a sovereignist or like someone who's advocating for Quebec independence. A separatist is like an accusation.
Yeah, I use sovereigntist as well.
Separatist.
Cool. So what exactly does you're investigating this, but what do? You said you stopped Breitbart from getting 80% of their funding. How did you do that?
Well, not Rachel personally.
So that wasn't me. That
Rachel
was
personally stopped Breitbart. Rachel personally has brought down Breitbart.
I
Steve
wish.
Bannon has Rachel's picture on a dartboard.
That is my goal. One day.
Yeah.
One day.
I'd be jealous of you.
I don't think it would be a dartboard. I think he just shoots things. So that's much worse.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
I saw
so
guns on there.
Maybe not your dream, actually. To be
no. They're scary. They're scary.
Yeah. So, I mean, my title there is investigative reporter. So I've been writing articles and like making TikToks of them, but they're a young company or a young nonprofit, sorry. And it's taken like a lot of planning to get to a point where we're going to be able to publish consistently. So we're still kind of getting there. You know, it's like, it's a startup at this point.
It's your proof of concept.
Yeah. And, but I am doing like journalism. Like I pitch stories, I look into things, and we've had a few stories like kind of get to almost the end point, but then we've got a lot of different kind of, like different strategies going on, or we kind of take a step back and want to recalibrate like who we are as an organization. And then my stories might kind of be shelved for a bit. So I'm really excited because there's a lot of cool stuff that we've been working on that hasn't been able to be published yet. Because I feel like we're really on to something here about something that a lot of people aren't aware of, about how disinformation is funded and thrives, and the way advertisers, frankly, like don't like have their if you want to treat advertisers as people, like how they don't have their freedom respected, you know, like they don't want to be funding certain things, but their money is being like yanked from them and put in bad places. So yeah, basically I'm just going to be writing articles about that. And yeah, you guys should definitely all subscribe to our newsletter.
Well, I'm proud of you. I just want to say it. I love the work you do.
Yeah, as your mother, I think you're doing a great job.
Oh my God, thank you. I didn't know my mother was such a beefcake.
Hey, there's 3 beefcakes.
Kind of is, actually. She works out a lot.
The moment you said last week that you're over 6 feet tall, I was like, there's 3 beefcakes on this podcast, and there ain't nothing anyone can do about it.
Exactly.
3 beefcakes, 1 podcast.
Yeah,
check out our last week's episode. It was really interesting. Okay, so wait, I had a question.
If you don't have anything, I have our little riff from what we were just talking about, because we were talking about like
riff away.
Yeah, we were talking about, you know, what is a journalist and stuff. And I actually had an experience today on the internet that made me think about the way that our media functions in this country in a big way. Like, I genuinely feel like the ways in which like National Post just has a billion super right-wing people on the payroll, watching them kind of shape discourse online is wild. And then seeing all of these like centrist reporters, like both sides, what the narrative that the right-wing media puts out, rather than
they
actually
accept that the goalposts have moved, and they don't adjust themselves. They move with the goalposts.
Exactly. So like, because I spoke at this symposium on online hate last week, and like I was actually there, and now everyone's talking about it as like this big politicized thing, acting like it was all about the government's online hate legislation. But that literally like didn't even come up. Like that wasn't a thing there. And the only thing I'm pissed about is that the justice minister, who wasn't even speaking, or like, I didn't even know he was there until I saw him like milling about afterwards. He was just like listening, I guess. He posted being like, oh, I had a great time speaking with the governor general today about the online hate bill. And I was like, bro, that's kind of unhelpful, because it's supposed to be this non-partisan, like, you know, the governor general isn't supposed to be politicized in that way. But the actual day wasn't politicized at all. It wasn't like, it was just people talking about their experiences, different stakeholders offering potential solutions. And it was a really good, powerful conversation. And then the big like hoopla online today has been all of these, like every conservative pundit has been saying that it's like disrespectful to the office of the governor general. She's brought shame on its name. She should not be speaking about online hate. Like, and it just like is wild to me, because like our governor general is not supposed to ever talk about anything important, especially that impacted them personally.
Also, like, is hate political now? Like,
literally, that's what I said.
I was like, yo, to say hate is bad?
I would love to know who the proponents of hate are then. Like, you know? So, I don't know. It just made me think about how...
No, actually, that sparked something. So, what you're describing sounds a little bit like what you would call manufacturing consent, right?
Exactly.
Like the old
Noam Chomsky
thing. Yeah. What's up, Noam?
Our boy Noam. We should get Noam on the podcast.
Oh,
Noam is one of the great men.
Yeah. Well, I always wanted to become a wrestler, and I thought maybe like Noam Chomsky, but with a G. Like I'm a gnome. It was bad. I'm sorry. I'm a dad. I have a kid. I can do shit like that. Moving right along, so this manufacturing consent thing. There was a really good article in La Presse. I'm forgetting the author. We'll link to it. I'll send it to you. He was talking about he wrote about how in Quebec we've embraced the idea of the decline of French and the rise of English as settled fact, when the statistics actually paint a much more complicated picture. So actually, I believe it's 94% of Quebecers can carry a conversation in French, which is more than at any point in the province's history, which is a good thing. And that was that's like recent. That's some pretty recent data. That's a reason to celebrate, but we ignore that and we go to the sort of anecdotal thing of the right wing angry columnists who went to get a coffee downtown and the person couldn't speak French because they're some student and that, you know, from Ontario or whatever, they don't speak French.
It does happen.
It happens. It totally happens, and it sucks. But it's not a societal crashing problem. So like that's one part of it, and then the other is that the government can no longer make the argument that French is declining as the common language. So now they're relying on, well, French is not, as the language spoken at home, it's down slightly. But that's just something that happens with immigrants. And also, like, mind your own fucking business. Let people speak the language they want to speak at home, as long as they can speak the other one in public. Anyhow, all of which is to say, very recently, the Office de la langue française du Québec is, like, they're not federalist. They're not an organization that is going to, like, give Anglos a free pass or, like, you know, paint things in rosy colors if they don't have to. Anyhow, they found that the use of French is stable and maybe even increasing. The use of English is going down. And this has not been covered at all. And so this author in La Presse spoke about how, like, well, it's just become accepted fact that French is declining in Quebec. We're accepting it. It's because of immigrants. It's because of XYZ. And when a fact contradicts that, you just ignore the fact because we've already moved the game over here. We've moved the goalpost. So what you're saying, that riff, I think was useful. It jotted this thing in my head.
I don't usually try to offer my opinions on this because I'm just kind of here like trying to moderate this conversation. But do you mind if I offer my opinion on something?
As someone who came from Ontario and speaks French, well, like you came here.
I'm from like Gatineau, Ottawa, and then from Vancouver. Then I moved to Vancouver halfway through my life. So where I'm from is up in the air.
You speak French beautifully, by the way.
Thank you, but it's because I was from that border of Quebec. So like I grew up with all the French politics my whole life, and my dad works for the government in Gatineau. So it's like I'm just a part of it, right? I feel like a Quebecer as much as I feel like anything else, right? But what I was gonna say is, so my partner is a French woman, okay?
Yeah.
So she's an immigrant, okay? She doesn't have her citizenship yet. She's all working on it, and the whole concept of English is on the rise. I don't notice them say that as much as French is on the decline. And what I've observed about it is that it's dog whistly, and it's actually because if it was actually about immigration, my girlfriend would be a problem.
Yeah, well,
but my girlfriend's
skin
white.
color is
And so the question isn't is English on the rise. The question is, are there brown people here? And it's pretty clear when you have like experiences like mine where it's like, well, no one seems to care that my partner is an immigrant because she's French and she's white. But then the moment it's somebody else who's learning French, who's Indian, that's when the problem. That's when the government is like, well, that's English. They're using English.
I would say that extends to other people speaking English and like Ontarians and people from the rest of Canada. Like I think as insofar as like discrimination and racism exists in Quebec, we're a little more open about it. I think it's the same everywhere, right? Like most places, like you couldn't get away in Ontario. You couldn't get away with a Bill 21. Because
50% of the province is
because it's not you can't do politics that way. But here there's still enough of a white majority, and you could still win without Montreal et les environs. So you could kind of say whatever you want in terms. I'm sorry, we're getting off on a tangent about like racism and stuff. I think it applies to this conversation. I mean. Quebec is really hard because the CAQ, the government obviously, like, they've adopted a bunch of openly hostile to immigrants positions. They've said some terrible things about immigrants. They've blamed immigrants on everything from the rise of COVID to like you stubbed your toe the other day. But the opposition that's beating them in the polls right now, the Parti Québécois, are increasingly embracing the far right politics of France. To the point where their youth wing invites members of Rassemblement National from France. That's used to be called, it's Marine Le Pen's party. It's a very hard right party.
Madame Le Pen.
Yeah. So our politics are shifting. In some ways we're kind of in the middle, and in some ways we're like very much shifting to the right, and immigration, French, whatever. All of this was based on that nice little riff about who and what as a journalist, and I get that I eat shit about that all the time because I've expressed my opinions, but if you ever read the stuff that we write, we're fair. We look at the story from every angle that we can look at the story from. I'm not telling people to march in the streets. I'm just suggesting they should.
Yeah, I think, but I do think that there's a really important overarching conversation about the way that we create, I mean, the way we manufacture consent, the way in which we develop this sort of status quo and accepted reality that may not necessarily reflect reality, with the way that we choose to report and frame and talk about things. And it's frustrating to me that the idea of objectivity is rooted around a status quo that is like tends to be an upper middle class white male straight, you know, middle-aged fiscal conservative, and that is unbiased, like a lack of bias.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I
This
mean?
is unbiased.
Yeah,
If you live in
exactly.
Markham, Ontario, and you drive a BMW that you saw an ad for on Breitbart, you're neutral.
Yeah,
If
and
you take
it's
the bus,
so
you're a fucking
frustrating.
communist.
And it's so
It is
frustrating because we
frustrating,
shouldn't
yeah.
just accept framings from people who maybe, because like people will come in and frame stuff in a certain way with an agenda, and then people who think they're being objective will shift the Overton window or will shift the center to
Yeah.
accommodate for those people who are not acting in good faith. And it's really frustrating. And I think it's a huge problem in our society right now. That's like a large part of the reason why a lot of media is so incapable of dealing with the rise of the far right now.
Yeah.
But wouldn't conservatives argue we've pushed it further left as well?
They definitely argue that.
Yeah, they'd argue it and they'd be
Yeah.
fucking wrong.
In what way are they wrong?
Well, I mean, just look at the stuff that's become normalized. I mean, the ways in which like we've got billionaires openly saying white replacement theory on their Twitter accounts. We've got it's a measure of what people can say publicly and not be shunned from public life. I mean,
But
there are
counterpoint, people can defend trans lives. You could not have defended your gay son back in the 70s, you know, like
Oh no.
yeah, but I feel
But,
like
you know, the gains come with backlash, right? There's
and
gains,
also
and
let
then-
me give you an example. When
yeah.
about 5 years ago, maybe a bit more, Republican strategists tested the idea of a bathroom bill and got fucking ridiculed. It was probably more than 5 years, actually.
Oh, it was
But-
in 2014, 2015.
Was that the one?
I remember. Yeah, it was in Carolina, I believe.
Yeah.
And a bunch
it
of
was-
like, I think the NFL pulled an important game, or
Yeah, and, like, Bruce
some kind of
Springsteen or
sporting league
something,
pulled a
like-
big. Yeah, it might have been the NCAA. I don't know, but it was like a big sporting event
was a
was
whole
moved out of
thing.
Carolina.
And it was
Check.
seen
And now
as just
it's
like
normal.
objectively wrong. And like
Yeah.
people accepted the accepted, you know, reaction to that move was that this was discriminatory and wrong. And
Yeah.
we have now moved to a place where that kind of shit is being openly proposed in policy from the Alberta government, from the New Brunswick government, like shit that hurts trans people.
Well,
That was
what was the
unacceptable.
line? What was the line in the United States that they want to eliminate trans people from public life? Like, that's terrifying.
I mean, that's arguably
Fine quote.
whether it's a line that's even said by any of the people who are proposing these policies, that is the impact of them. So
That's
even if
inciting
they try to
violence. I mean,
pretend
even
they
if
don't
you're not
believe it.
saying,
Yeah.
even if you're not saying go attack these people, you're dehumanizing them. They're monsters, right? They're these freaks. They're these monsters. You can do whatever you want to them.
Yeah.
And this idea that like people are going into bathrooms and like, look, what you're describing is a crime. You're not, this isn't a trans thing. This is a crime thing. And like,
Yeah.
by the way, it's not something that happens an awful lot. Criminals, you know, tend to
The
be
only
a little more
times I've
savvy.
heard of people going into bathrooms to assault people, it's been cis straight men going into
Yeah,
bathrooms
yeah.
to assault people.
I mean, it's like how the shooters in the United States, like the mass shooters, are always cis white men. But
Yeah.
then I think one time in the past like 5 years, it was a trans person, and the entire right wing was like, "You see."
And they totally blew the
Yes,
situation out of
see.
proportion. They took it out of context.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're just like, guys, like
Yeah.
you do realize that 99.5% of the time it has been the opposite.
It's not like a woman problem to
It's
go
not-
and,
it's
and
not
start
a woman
shooting
problem.
people with a
No.
gun. It's I mean, the when people talk about another tangent, when people talk about the United States is on the cusp of a civil war, like, what do you call it when like every now and again a right-wing maniac goes into a parking lot and starts shooting Mexicans, or visibly Mexican people or brown people, whatever, you know, like what do you call it when people with one, generally, like almost all the time, it's people of one political ideology pick up a gun and go kill a bunch of people. Like that's political violence. Like that is a very much a feature of, if not a civil war, then like a conflict that is bubbling towards a civil war. I'm sorry, I've been watching too much TV.
There's not going to be a civil war, I don't think, personally.
I don't know. Fuck. Who knows, man?
I feel like it's just going to be more and more acts of like radical violence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's going to be more and more crazy QAnon guys taking action.
True. And a civil war requires planning and effort. And those are two things that like right wingers in the States with a bunch of guns, like they're just not great at that. When they plan, they get caught because they're obvious about it. And
one thing I will say, we have active clubs that are getting bigger and bigger, and they're starting in Canada too. Like the
can you talk about some of those?
Starting.
Yeah. What are ways that like this shit happens in real life? Like I know, so in Quebec, Atalante, which is like inspired by these Europeans, they had a fight club near Quebec City. They would like get together and so ridiculous, like learn martial arts. Like
Tyler Durden is the good guy.
He is. Tyler Durden is the good guy, and I'd love like to see the looks on their faces if they ever like knew who Chuck Palahniuk was, and like he's not the real tough like alpha male you think he is. He's a pretty nuanced.
Yeah. What are these things? How are they developing, Rachel?
So what's really freaked me out is there's been some anti-racism and anti-hate researchers who have been tracking the development of active clubs out of the Diagolon far-right group that we discussed last week. And they're showing that these guys are moving from having these conversations online to organizing offline. So I might butcher the actual definition of an active club. I almost wonder if I should like pull it up but the sense that I get is that it's people who get together in real life based on their ideologies and try to practice sort of not self-defense, but like violent, I don't know, like what we would call self-defense, like maybe martial arts or something along those lines.
It feels more like hooliganism here, you know, like we'll get a bunch of people together and like start a fight or attack people. Because again, like Atalante, Quebec, they assault people at bars, outside bars, whatever. But it's never
they're basically
like they got
cells.
guns and did a thing.
They're like terror cells of generally like white far right dudes. And to give you an example of how this actually like comes to fruition, you can see on these live streams, one of the major Diagolon guys, what he does is he says, like he's been saying for the last 2 years, you know, there's people coming for us. It's always generally racialized. He's talking about how Canada's turning into India, how we have to defend ourselves, how it's okay to be white, and how it's like, you know, white people are being erased, and it's all of the neo-Nazi sort of tropes. And, you know, and he's interviewing actual neo-Nazis who are doing the same kind of organizing in other places around the world. And then he turns to his audience, who he's been selling this image that they're under threat by an other too. Like he's been convincing them of this fact. And he says, we're getting some guys together to, you know, do some drills in the woods, and like we're gonna you know, practice this stuff. We're gonna have like a little club. And it sounds like it's just like cosplaying almost, but it ends up like these are actually dangerous cells, right?
Well, it's like I mean, and this is the United States, but I mean, like when Kyle Rittenhouse, you know, decided he was going to play army, and he went, you know, he drove to another state and fucking killed a bunch of people.
And then was proclaimed innocent.
Yeah. Did you know did you know he flunked out of his military, like he tried to join the Marines or something, and it was the written exam that he failed.
He wasn't smart enough to join.
A former Marine said, you have to be so fucking stupid to be too dumb for the Marines. So, you know,
that's
good for
crazy.
You, Kyle. I hope you enjoy not being a Marine, you fucking asshole.
Did you see the picture he posted where his pants still had the folds in them?
Yes.
From like clearly had just put them on, and he was like, tough day of training. And it's like, bro.
And he was sitting in the lawn chair.
He was in the lawn chair, and there was like snack packs behind him. They had like jujubes and shit. Like, dude, you guys are just playing pow pow in the woods.
Yeah, but the right
with
wing
real
loves
ammunition.
Him, but they love him. They invite him to speak at conferences.
Of course, yeah. because to them he's like John Wilkes Booth. You know, he's a symbol of the resistance.
John Wilkes
Well,
Booth, who
and what's
killed
dangerous
Abraham
is that
Lincoln.
like
Yeah.
these guys
Sorry,
are
I've been watching this
laughable.
series about John Wilkes Booth.
Okay.
Sorry.
Also, sorry if I'm
go
interrupting.
check
My
it out, check
Wi-Fi
it
is
out.
getting a little funny, but
Oh no, it's okay.
but no, but like what's scary about this is that like it is so ridiculous. Like the idea, like a lot of these dudes, I feel like aren't actually very strong or in shape or would actually be able to do much.
They're super out of shape.
Yeah, but it only takes like one of them, and they're all getting together, scaring the like. Fundamentally, it's that they're scared shitless about a made-up boogeyman, and they like get together to practice to fight the boogeyman that they like literally have just made up in their own heads. But that's like a tinderbox, right? Like they think that they're defending themselves, and especially when it comes to the trans rights issues too. And like all of these guys, they're also doing anti-trans rhetoric. They think they're protecting kids, and when you put kids in the equation, people go fucking feral. They lose their minds. And that's why it's so dangerous to see that framing happening, and why it's so irresponsible when like political actors lean into that as well. So I don't know, the whole thing is like, it is kind of a tinderbox.
And let's be honest, like the last time, like when Pierre Poilievre ran for leadership, he ran against, years ago, this would have been a dream candidate for the Conservatives, Jean Charest, former Quebec premier, very charismatic, kind of middle of the road, but conservative where he needs to be, like a true progressive conservative. And he got the shit kicked out of him by Poilievre.
Yeah,
his campaign launch, everybody got COVID because he's such a fucking loser. And I'm sorry, I could say that now. He's not in politics anymore. But he lost because the energy of that party is behind someone like Poilievre. The energy of that party is, unfortunately, like harness that fear, harness that anger that's happening in these fucking snack pack open clubs, and and get these people to vote, because they will, because there's no, like, right now there is no energy behind liberalism in Canada. There is certainly no energy behind this government. Like, we're all fucking fed up. So it's a pretty golden moment for the right in Canada.
Can we talk about that for a second? Do you guys
Yes.
mind if we transition to, extremism is on the rise, I think probably 80% because of what you're talking about, what you're researching, Rachel. But let's talk about Poilievre, and let's talk about Trudeau, because a lot of conservatives would straight up blame Trudeau and say he's leading the country in the wrong direction. But also, what does that mean? Because he seems pretty milquetoast to me. And then the other question I have is, what is Poilievre? Is he far right, or is he just signaling to them?
He's a
so
lifelong,
let's talk about that.
He's
so,
a prankster turned politician. I don't
yeah.
really think he has beliefs.
Rachel, you have personally been reamed out by Poilievre in an amazing video where he treats you like shit, and you just are so fucking hard. And
Wait.
Rachel is streets as fuck.
You are streets as fuck. You hand him your ass, if I remember right. In fact, there was articles written about how he treated you like shit.
I think you're
I
thinking
you're thinking of someone else, but I'm going to
Wait,
take
who am
the
I thinking
compliments
of then?
anyways. He did write a press release about me. That was I was the like canary in the
the
coal
target
mine.
of the press release.
Wait, then who did he tell off? Who am I thinking of?
Are you
he
thinking
went
the
after
Apple
Mickey.
video? No.
He went after Mickey from the Canadian Press and Teresa Wright as well in PEI. He went after her. And he went after a local journalist in an apple orchard. So there was like those three big attacks, two of whom are really good friends of mine. So it's just like, damn. Like, and also,
It's like when you're in the little circle, like the Twitter, TikTok circle that we're in, it's like, I'm like, wait, who was in that video?
Yeah.
That guy threatened to kill you too.
Which white woman journalist did Poilievre attack today?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so can you describe your interactions with him then, since he apparently
for
is
sure.
threatening you?
So I was,
Pierre Poilievre is threatening Rachel.
It's not so much. It's like you can't. It doesn't meet the legal definition of a threat, but it's pretty clear what he's doing.
I mean, it certainly helped fuel some of the people who did send me what could arguably
Okay, so go ahead.
what
I'll
he
stop
was
being a clown.
No, the clowning is
Acting
good.
a fool.
But no, basically so I was working on an article writing about how close is too close to the far right, because he was associating himself with a lot of people who were then associated with like genuine far right extremists that were having like assessments done by, you know, ITAC, like intelligence agencies, and like the arms of the OPP and the RCMP who are responsible for putting together intelligence about people who are threatening, which, you know, we can problematize that.
Look, we've all got friends on lists, okay? We all have friends that are on lists.
Yeah.
I think.
Probably. I don't know. I mean, yeah, probably. But basically, these guys, like, he marched with a guy who had gone on a Diagolon podcast. He showed up at this march that I obtained the permit requests for this march that was filed with the city of Ottawa. And the woman who filed it, like, I obviously this was a story we got really carefully lawyered, so I kind of want to be careful just riffing the facts here. But she had posted some extremely problematic stuff about like Muslim MPs, and like she literally had posted on her Facebook a list of all of the Muslim members of parliament and things like that. She had also,
that's not weird at all.
Yeah, and she had spoken at a rally that was attended by several white supremacist groups and far right extremist groups, as like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network had identified them, and like they showed me pictures and stuff of these people at the rally. A notorious neo-Nazi was also at this rally that she was speaking at. And so basically this was an interrogation of, at what point do you get concerned about a politician associating with these kinds of people, and how close is too close? And we reached out to Poilievre for comment for that, because that's what responsible journalists do, right? Yeah. And I sent him a list of questions, and he responded to that with something that read a lot like a press release, and it was really fucking intense. Like, he called me a so-called journalist and things like that. Like, it was just wild. And he hadn't yeah, and he hadn't really leaned into that rhetoric yet. So we were all kind of like, what the fuck? And we were taken a bit off guard by it. I think it was signed off on by Anthony Koch, was the one who like actually, you know, put his signature on it. You know, the one who's been saying some really crazy stuff for the last few months. But basically, then we published the story, and we include a bit of his statement, obviously not the whole thing, because it was like a fucking manifesto. And then when we publish, he pushes it out as a press release. And I was like, well, that makes sense, because it read like a fucking press release. And so we also like included our questions in the article, so people could read my questions and decide if they were actually that unfair. So like all of this was very transparent. And so that was my experience with that. And it was very unpleasant. And it was wild because I got so much hate from this. And then one day I got a DM from Pierre Poilievre's wife, because, and this is a little exclusive for you guys, but she DM'd me and sent me a link to a video of the members of Diagolon talking about sexually assaulting her. And I responded to her and I was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. This is unacceptable. And I offered her, I was like, I've done a lot of reporting on these guys. If you need anything at all, please let me know. Like, I'm really sorry. This is not okay. And she didn't answer me, which is fine. Like, you know, and it was just really interesting to me because since then, like, she and I have had a few little Twitter interactions, and she's said things like, I don't know why this person follows me. And it's just like, I don't know. I tried to help you and extend some empathy to you. And it just certainly
that sounds like you did a really good thing. So thanks, Rachel.
I tried
on behalf of people.
I mean, so you treat others the way you want to be treated, right?
Yeah, so, that's Jesus Christ right there. But
that was me. Like, sorry, the listeners at home don't see it, but I was pumping my fist for Jesus.
Oh, I couldn't see that either because you froze on my end. So
okay, I was pumping my fist for Jesus, Rachel.
Poilievre and I got in a fight before then, and it wasn't even a fight. It was just like I tweeted pointing out that he was using the Great Reset terminology, which is like, and I explained the conspiracy theory around it. And he like tweeted kind of like gaslighting, being like, actually, did you read Klaus Schwab wrote a document called The Great Reset? So I'm not doing anything. And I was like, okay, but don't you know that's how conspiracy theories start, is like a grain of truth, and you're using the terminology that goes beyond that. But anyway, so that's kind of my back and forth with Poilievre.
He was just asking questions.
His wife sends you a video of her being threatened to be sexually assaulted, and now she treats you like shit.
Yeah.
That's not.
I don't
very nice.
understand.
No. People.
Well, it's partisanship, you know? Like, it rots the brain. Like, if I was a partisan, I might not have responded with that kind of empathy, but I'm a human being and not a partisan. So, like, I respond with the empathy of a fellow human being. If you approach everything as a political
I fucking hate
win or
partisanship
loss,
so much.
it's
Partisanship,
so fucking stupid.
And
It
like
rots
on the
brain.
left just as much. I don't
It's
like
awful.
when like the people who go online and defend Trudeau no matter what.
Oh my God,
Or the
it's
like,
embarrassing.
Just fucking acknowledge when a mistake is made. It doesn't have to shatter your entire identity. Like
Yeah, like
and also like
talk
if
about
your
the mistake.
identity is tied to a goddamn political party, like come on. Let's have a set of principles. Let's be good to each other.
Yeah.
Let's walk into our neighbors' houses and make ourselves coffee. Oh, sorry, that's an Isaac thing.
So there's an amazing quote from George Washington,
Oh,
the man himself, about partisanship and his farewell address, which I will now read to you guys. However, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion.
that's
And he's
his
talking
farewell
about
address?
partisanship.
You know what he all that like I'm as a student of American. I used to be I got kicked out of McGill, but before I got kicked out of McGill, I was studying history, and one of the things is that was his farewell address where he warned
Don't be partisan.
partisanship was a big part of it, and another big part of it was do not get involved in those European wars. That did not last long, the advice, but their reluctance to get involved in World War I was very much based on that sort of Washingtonian philosophy. But there is an equivalent to that in Quebec. René Lévesque, the saint, the patron saint of Quebec politics, the patron, like, you don't come closer to sainthood, secular sainthood in this province than René Lévesque. He said that he strongly dislikes political parties, and that if a political party stays around for long enough, it becomes a lot like a religion.
Yes.
And I find that interesting in the Quebec context because we kind of have replaced the Catholic Church with our partisan politics.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
And that, like, you're replacing, something you don't like with something that is also kind of real shitty. And I can't do party politics. It turns into a game, and I think it should be a little.
Well,
They should all be taken to task.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's
represent
so
your
annoying.
constituents, not your party.
Exactly.
Go ahead,
and that's one
Rachel.
thing
Go
that's
ahead,
so
Rachel.
infuriating about like the pundit class too, is that they all just like analyze every situation as if it's like either a political win or a political loss, and they kind of lose sight of the fact that politics is supposed to be about like making the world a little less shit, and it's like and you disagreeing about the best way to do that. It's like everything is treated like it's like a fucking football game. Do you know?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's infuriating. It's actually a big part of why I'm really fed up with political journalism. Is because
why you're moving out of Ottawa.
Yeah. I just can't deal with that lack of empathy anymore.
Yeah.
I remember at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, someone in the States had written, it was like, for sure this had to have been Politico because they see the world through that lens. Winning and losing politics, everything else is bullshit. It was something like, well, COVID could actually harm Trump because so many of his voters are dying. It's like, Jesus Christ.
That's it to the
Can
end.
we look at it through another lens of like, the Democratic plan to win is all elderly people must die. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not funny. I hope the elderly...
It's sad because a lot of politicians do look at it like that.
Yeah. It's kind of funny though because of how craven it is, because of how devoid of any kind of principle it is. It's like, are we winning? Are we losing? Doesn't matter. Let's just make this decision. It matters. Winning and losing is everything.
To circle back to like how we started the conversation about everything that Rachel's doing, I know this has happened before in history, but it's happening again sort of because of everything that Rachel's investigating. It's because of internet ads because of like extremely aggressive marketing campaigns that like are
Yeah,
making
the
huge sums
limited
of money.
attention span needs to be excited by big shiny things.
And like the people think that a one-liner on Twitter or TikTok is political discourse.
Yeah.
A zinger. Yeah, well, when we cover the debates, right? Like, I remember all the time we would get these complaints about how the debates aren't substantive enough, like in the Quebec elections in Ontario, whatever. But then when the debates become about policy, people tune out. They want to see them fight. They want to see them argue. They want to see them, set each other up with these sick burns. But like, that's not politics. That's just fucking high school.
Yeah.
Is Trudeau the problem? Is Trudeau the problem?
He's definitely part of the problem. I think.
Yeah, for sure. He's part of the problem.
Okay,
Absolutely.
tell me why he's part of the problem. Why is Trudeau part of the problem?
I mean, I feel like he doesn't know how to communicate at all. He often says like shit in ways that doesn't really resonate with people. I also feel like, honestly, this might not be limited to Trudeau. I mean, Trudeau has also had a lot of fuck ups that I think have like fundamentally alienated him from like a lot of people who might otherwise be progressive, but like willing to stomach a vote for the Liberals. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially on
That's
Gaza.
their whole ethos.
Yeah.
Stomach the Liberals.
Yeah,
Stomach
literally.
us 'cause
And it's
we're
like
better than the
he's
other
kind of
guys.
fucked up that ability in a lot of ways. I also just, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is actually like, it's hard to talk about it because like, I feel like I'm doing the football thing, but I feel like part of the reason why he's struggling is because he hasn't been able to take advantage of the advent of digital media and the way that people want to feel like they know the politician. Like it's like they're influencer that they watch, or like it's like a podcaster that they listen to. Like Poilievre
he doesn't have
a
real personality, and
no, and he comes across like very like at a distance. Do you know what I mean? Like
well, he grew up
like,
in the public eye. He was the prime minister's son, right? And like he has said that he developed a persona, or he was guarded very early because he got a sense of like, yes, some people will hate you because of who your dad was, but a lot of people will like you because of who your dad was, not because of who you are. So I followed Trudeau for like, that sounds like I was stalking him. I was on assignment covering Trudeau in the 2015 election before he was leading in the polls, back when it was like he's going to lose and Mulcair will be the next prime minister. Funny how that worked out. And I remember trying so hard to get past the wall, and it just doesn't happen. There's no getting past a skill that someone has spent their entire life developing, and his wall, and his like everything he says sounds like it's been laser focus grouped until he tries to tell a joke and then fucks it up and says something so dumb. I mean, we all do it. But the thing I'll say about Trudeau, if I may, is that he doesn't have very much political courage. He did when he was third in the polls, and when he needed to make gains. Like I remember Thomas Mulcair was very careful about how he dealt with back before Bill 21 in Quebec. There was another thing called the Charter of Quebec Values, which would require public servants to who wear a hijab. Well, you wouldn't be able to be a public servant and have a hijab or a kippah, or if you're or a turban. But Mulcair, because the base of his strength was in Quebec, he wanted to see what the polling said on that before making a move. Trudeau right off was authentic. He said it goes against the charter of rights and freedoms. It is un-Canadian, and people, whether you agree with him or not, you have to respect somebody who takes a principled stand and sticks by it. What happened after he won was that, he tried to be all things to all people. You're I'm going to plant 1 billion trees, but I'm also going to buy a pipeline with public money. We're going to help poor Canadians, but they're also going to like give giant contracts out to their friends and that sort of thing. And I mean, Israel is another good example. Like, where is your courage? Like, why are you letting someone like Anthony Housefather advocate for rearming Israel? Why does he get to stay in the caucus? Oh, because you're scared of losing his seat. So he could say he can back up genocide, and that's cool. He belongs in the party. He even gets praised. They even gave him like a special new role within the party. It's a party that doesn't have principles except we want to win, and we're sort of in the middle of the road. But if we need to adopt a conservative position, we will. And if we need to say opposite, like a criticism of that Poilievre made of Trudeau is absolutely true. What he says depends on who he's talking to. You know, he speaks a certain way when he's in Quebec. He speaks a certain way when he's on the West Coast, and people don't trust that. And that's all part of the persona thing. Like, what is reality? Like, who is the real Justin Trudeau? It's very hard to tell. And I'm not like, I don't think he's a bad person. I don't like, it's not about that, but you know, you are the prime minister, so you will come under harsh scrutiny. And yeah, you have to make tough decisions. And it's weird because it's like, he hasn't made any huge principled decision that's going to like make him enemies, or at least it doesn't feel like he has. I think a lot of the enemies he's made is because he's so milquetoast. And
well, and then
you can you can ascribe any motivation you want to him because he's held so many positions.
And I think
so
that's
you could say he's an extremist. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think that's what's so alienating in our politics right now is that is Trudeau and it's also Poilievre, you know? But the only reason why Poilievre is like, because Poilievre has literally been caught saying things in certain areas that he wouldn't say in others. And then, you know, so it's just like, I think it's just really frustrating because it feels like there's no one authentic. But Poilievre is doing a better job. Like, it's like they decided down to the very like marrow of his being what his brand is, and then he can like riff off of that. Do you know what I mean?
It is kind of amazing though that like for a guy who's like, I'm for the working man, like every time he describes people who work for a living, you're like,
he has no idea. Like
what was the thing about the welding? Do you remember, what did he say?
He said welding with your bare hands or something along
the guy who welds with his bare hands.
Exactly.
I trust him. Like, dude, he's got more brain power than the prime minister. Like, well, I hope he has brain power. He just fucking welded his hands off.
Yeah.
He can't use them anymore.
Said that, like, the electrician who like grabs electricity from the sky, and he said that like 7 times. But like, I don't know.
Wait, we don't get electricity from the sky?
I do.
Oh shit. Well, thank you. That's how it's meant to, you know, Benjamin Franklin.
So you kind of fucked up last week then, eh?
Yep.
Listen.
Yeah, we really
get off our back.
I'm sorry there was a power outage last week.
For further context, we had no Wi-Fi last week. The podcast that we released made with magic.
Magic and raw dog in your phone's data. Just fucking totally raw going to town.
Jesus.
How many gigs?
Okay, at the beginning of this podcast, I promised optimism. How are we going to fix these things? Wow, Rachel's having a panic attack.
Yeah, optimism isn't my strong suit. Okay, so first of all, we have to regulate the ad tech industry because now there's none of that there.
That's what I was going to ask about.
So
how do we do that? What do we need?
Okay, so I don't have all the answers, but we can start with actually requiring tech companies like Google to, this shit's super technical, but to basically provide advertisers with log level data so that they can actually see where their ads are going. They need to actually enforce their own publisher policies, which they currently do not. They have policies against funding misinformation, against funding hate, against funding all of these bad things that we keep finding them, you know, monetizing. So if they're actually made to enforce those things with consequences if they do not, then, you know, we might actually see some mileage here. Like, and the thing is that these guys have so much money, you have to make sure that there's actual consequences to them breaking the rules because they might be able to afford to break the rules, right?
Yeah.
So those are some things that we can do. And I think that if we attack that, you know, co-option of $1 trillion global business, that will actually help. It'll go a long way to disincentivize the spread of disinformation and fake news, because if there isn't as much money to be made from that, hopefully that'll make a difference. But it is true that there are a lot of people right now being suckered into giving money to these fake news websites as well. People subscribe to them, people donate to their fundraisers and, you know, shit like that. And that's, you know, nothing can be done about that other than to try to educate the population better to be able to think critically and assess information that's put in front of them. And that comes back to like funding education and actually educating people to be able to read and think critically. Because once people are informed, most people, I like to think that man is basically good. Like most of us, there's some psychos in
I
our
believe
midst.
that. Yeah, 100%.
But
I'm
yeah,
on
and
board
so
with
like
that.
I think that a lot of the anger and hate and everything comes from people not understanding, not having be exposed to experiences that are different than theirs, not being able to think critically. So when bad actors publish, you know, things that look a lot like studies that aren't really, or things that, you know, look like well-researched articles that aren't really, that can cause them to have opinions that they would not otherwise have if they were presented with only factual data that they can interpret as they see fit. But I think the average person, you know, like if you're told that something is killing kids or that something is killing you and your loved ones, you're going to be scared of it. But if we actually disincentivize those kinds of publications that are saying crazy shit like that, I think that would go a long way, especially if it's in tandem with better media literacy and critical thinking being taught from the get-go. So I think that could help.
Yeah, I think that's a really good start.
And tax the rich more. Stop billionaires. Like,
I don't
people
think
are pissed off because they can't afford to buy dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about you? What do you think are some like practical solutions to these? Because I find the reason I ask this is just because I often find like people like us and people on the right as well often have criticisms, but we never say, well, maybe there's some solutions. Like, clearly the politicians aren't good at giving us solutions, so maybe we should offer solutions.
I think we have to change our winner-take-all vision of politics, and I don't know how that gets done. Like, all I know how to do every day is get up and try to fight. And there's days where I can't fight. I have nothing in me. And let me disclose something to you. I think you know this.
Me or the podcast?
Everybody. I'm having a real hard time these days. Like, I'm fucking run down. And like, I'm happy. The business is going well. My partner MP and I are happy. The baby's healthy. But I'm struggling with, like, I have this thing called CPTSD. It's like post-traumatic stress disorder. And it fucks you up. It makes you paranoid. It makes you see threats everywhere. I'm always in like fight or flight. It's not fun. It's really like, you're never enjoying yourself. You're always like in your head, and you're always like ready to go, and you're always scared. And you see, you know, you get so paranoid. And every time I feel like I'm moving past it, you know, like I've gotten to a better place, like I relapse. I go crazy. Something bad happens, you know, and I am having such a hard time accepting that, like, okay, it's like if you're an alcoholic, you're always going to be an alcoholic. You're never just going to be able to have one drink. You know, if you tear your ACL, your knee's never going to be, you can surgically repair it. You can do all the exercise you want. Your knee's always going to be busted up. I'm always going to be busted up in my head and in my heart. It's just always going to be who I am. All I can do, the only thing I can do, and I need to rest and relax and all that, but like I gotta stick to the program, which is like, get up, do what you can to help someone, be of service to others, exercise constantly, avoid drinking, stay on your meds. And it's hard to accept that that's the world that I have, like that, like so many of us, you know, we have these problems but like, if you accept that, okay, the system is fucked up, right? Things are bad, and they're probably going to get worse before they get better. But you can play a role in making it better, you know? You can get up and you can fight, and you can fight every day. Some days, fighting might just mean getting out of bed. Some days, fighting might be, you know, you write a fucking letter to your member of parliament that maybe is the letter that touches that member of parliament and changes their mind and affects change. Some days fighting might just be your kid's going crazy and you don't lose your shit. You're just patient and calm and kind. And so I know that the world is full of people like that. And I know that you're like that, Rachel. And I know, like, Isaac is one of my best friends, and we've only known each other for 2 years. And I love Isaac like a sibling. And like, that's I've gone in a million directions, but what I mean to say is there's love out there, and there's solutions out there, and there's hope out there. Because like there was a time in my life where like it was over, like I was gone, you know, but I'm still here bugging all you motherfuckers. So please don't give up. That's all I could say. Don't give up. You want to fucking chill? Shoot me an email. Maybe not Rachel. Rachel's overloaded. Shoot me an email. Shoot Isaac an email. You know, you want to talk? Let's fucking talk. Let's work together. Like, I believe in it. I believe in people. I don't know if I believe in Canada, but I believe in a lot of those ideas that are in our Charter of Rights, and I believe in a lot of those ideas that are in our Constitution. But you know, I mean, all of that to say, like, I am positive, and I fucking love you guys, and I love doing this, and I love being a part of this, and I have to remind myself of that today because I'm upset today, and I'm dying, and I'm like all over the place. But we're still here, we're still showing up, and being with you guys for an hour and 20 minutes or whatever it is has been a like highlight of my week, and I really appreciate it.
I mean, the feeling's mutual, right? Like I I
would have preferred a longer pause.
I had such a big cry this morning when I was speaking out about something that my family has gotten threats. I haven't felt safe. My entire life changed, and I basically lost my career because of death threats. And then I opened a National Post article calling it mean internet comments. And there's just only so much.
Who wrote it, by the way?
What was her name? Jamie Sekornak or something.
All right, well, she's on the shit list, so you know.
Yeah, and also,
hey, Jamie, you're not getting a Christmas card. Fuck you.
Carson Jerema is the actual dude who edits and puts together their op-ed section, and I feel like look at his fucking Twitter sometime, and you'll learn a lot about the National Post's op-ed section. But is he the
guy who went after I feel like he went after someone recently, and it really, really crossed the line, and then he actually apologized. But
you might be thinking of Raheem Mohammed.
I am thinking of Raheem Mohammed.
Yeah, he went after
you're
Supriya.
Right, but look, I used to work. I worked in the same office as the National Post, and it was pretty bad back then. But it is not even close to comparable. They just don't have reporters anymore. They use wire copy, and they have fucking Rex Murphy, who once wrote a column about how all he eats is Kraft dinner. He can't make himself anything else. He doesn't know how to cook.
My God,
and I'm curious about the size and vitality of his tapeworms. They got to be big.
Yeah.
This week about a major crown corporation potentially paying one of its witnesses a very large amount of money during a pretty contentious trial. I don't want to give up more details than that because I end up scooping myself. And maybe by the time this is up here, the article will already be out. But I'm super excited about it, and we've got a video. We have new videos on.
We've got a lot of new stuff coming out constantly.
Stuff on the YouTube. And we're just, we're just having a lot of fun, and we'd love it if you joined us.
Yeah, come join us. rover.ca/support-us. That's rover.ca/support SUPPORT-US. Okay, sign up for the free newsletter. Give this podcast 5 stars on Spotify, on wherever you are. Please go like the YouTube, follow us on YouTube. Is there anything else that you guys want to say before we go? Rachel, where can we find you?
My handles are all different, so find one of my accounts and go to my link tree, but just search r.gilmore, Rachel_Gilmore, or at Rachel Gilmore, and that's Gilmore, like the Gilmore Girls TV show.
All the links will be in the description, so if you want to check those out. I've been linking them.
Fucking A.
Chris, you too, X, Twitter, whatever. They use Instagram.
If you're listening, you know where to find me.
They're all linked below, okay? Yeah. So we're trying to grow this, guys. Right now we're doing pretty good. We're getting 350 a week, which is really good to start. This is the first month and a half.
We'll be transparent about everything we do and make and how we spend our money and who our friends are.
You can go check out the report of how the Rover has spent all their money. You should, if you want to know that. It's just all about accountability, and Chris is really leading the charge on that. A lot of more magazines should be doing
I put up an embarrassing amount of financial data, man.
It's great.
How do you like your Lunchables, kid?